got a load in my house, and we're gonna shoot someone.
I certainly never traveled anywhere in Dade County without being armed. There's no question about that.
I always had a gun. I wouldn't sleep well without one, especially in the Miami of that time.
Edna Buchanan on national television saying she wears 2 guns and everybody has to wear a gun.
Merritt Steerheim, who was then the county manager, and all the commissioners were furious, so I was persona non grata for a while.
Miami was literally being torn apart at the seams.
But police help won't come soon because of a manpower shortage in the department. Federal agencies readily admit they are crippled by lack of manpower, money, and resources.
The City of Miami Police Department went on a blind hiring frenzy.
It's hoped more police on the streets will help to reverse this record-setting trend.
And they used to have standards. You couldn't ever have used drugs if you wanted to be a policeman. So they reduced it to you couldn't have used drugs in the last 10 years, and that didn't work. So they said, well, you couldn't have used drugs in the last 5 years. They still couldn't recruit enough. So they said you couldn't have used drugs in the last 2 years, and finally it got to a point where if you're not under the influence of drugs at the moment, you're hired.
That resulted in the largest police corruption crisis since the Serpico days up in New York.
And the entire academy class from that year later on went to jail or died.
This makes a total of 3 Miami officers arrested over the weekend.
Today's arrest came as 7 other Miami officers went on trial accused of ripping off other cocaine dealers and for dealing drugs themselves.
The so-called cocaine cops have been charged with conspiracy, drug trafficking, and racketeering.
Tally shocking. 40 current or former Miami police officers arrested or suspended in the last 2 years, 16 suspended in just the last 2 weeks. And it is not over. At least 30 more Miami cops will be suspended.
The rule of law completely broke down in South Florida.
We might as well just not even come to work and just give the streets up.
We truly are committed, and we are going to gain control of these streets once again.
The criminal justice system is not working now, and I suggest a revisit of the whole idea.
CENTAC 26 went fully operational in December of '81.
There were 25 previous CENTAC organizations in different cities in the United States.
CENTAC stands for Central Tactical Unit.
Our primary goal was to couple the homicide investigations with drug investigations.
They had good connections with the DEA, with the FBI.
We were dealing with a kind of criminal with whom we had not dealt before. And so my mandate to my people was very simple. Extraordinary times call for extraordinary measures.
You would use whatever method you could to take someone out of the picture or off the street.
We're going to get rid of them either by putting them in jail or we're going to kill them.
It was a unit that was meant to be more proactive than reactive.
It was just a different way of doing police work, and it was called for at the time because of the nature of the criminal, with both the Colombians and the Cuban criminals who came from Morel.
Miami seems to have become paradise lost.
In the fall or winter of 1981, the article Paradise Lost came out in Time magazine.
Time magazine crushed Miami.
The 9-page article inside focused primarily on Miami as the troubled center of drugs, crime, and refugees.
The politicians in Miami-Dade County and Miami went crazy when they saw that.
That's the #1 question that's asked. Is it safe to come to Miami Beach?
And what do you tell them?
And again, I'm saying to them, unless you're coming down here to traffic in drugs, we are as safe here as you would be anywhere else in the world, including your own hometown.
We were torn between 2 worlds, fun and sun capital, murder capital.
That was the gist of that article, that the criminals were winning and we were losing.
I was born in Cali, Colombia, arrived in the United States, 1969. Well, I grew up in Chicago. I was a mechanic with my dad. He worked for General Motors. That's where I learned how to break into cars. Well, when I was growing up, I was known as a car thief, one of the biggest car thieves in Chicago. And then after the 80s, I was known to be an assassin for the cartel. I just got with a group of guys and we started stealing cars, selling them to shop shops. Between $200 and $500 a car. We used to steal 5, 6 a night. It was 3 of us. So we're making good money, better than working for my dad. I come from a good family. I had everything I needed. You know, I didn't need to go steal cars, but it was just the money and the excitement of going ripping somebody's car off and selling it, you know. It's a Colombian restaurant. We used to hang out there because of the payphone. That's what the junkies used to call us. We used to, it's our office. I had a specific spot where I used to park my car, and no one will park there. The moment I got there, there was a car parked in front. So I asked the owner of the restaurant, whose car is that? He said it belongs to some big shots from Miami. So I told him I didn't give a fuck who they belong to. I wanted the car moved, so I took it. The next morning, we were in the restaurant, and 3 Colombians came in, and he asked who was Riverita. He said, I'm looking for, he stole my car. So I said, I'm the guy you're looking for, I'm River. He says, you stole my car, and I want my car back. I said, you can't have it back unless you give me $500 for it, because it belongs to me now, because you parked where you're not supposed to park. He started laughing. And he said, you got some balls, you know that? I said, I heard that before. He said, so what are we gonna do? I said, simple, $500. You get your car back. Pay me. Got his keys out and opened the trunk. It was full of guns, used guns, revolvers, automatic pistols. And he asked me if I ever been to Florida. I said, yeah, with my dad. He asked me if I had a driver's license. I said, yeah, I got about 6 of them. He asked me if I could drive to Miami. I said, sure, if I get paid. He said, yeah, he will pay me $5,000 for it. I told him, yeah, no problem. When I got to Miami, I said, look, I got some things going. Maybe you guys could, work for me, make some more money in Miami, if we could stay in Miami. I told him, what? He said, just delivering dope and picking up money. Maybe once in a while, push somebody around. Money was good. He was paying me $1,000 a day. That was the first time that we were working with people that were in the drug business, but we didn't have no plans, so we started killing people. It turned out that way later, but a couple of weeks went by, we were in a Jacaranda, it's a Colombian nightclub in Miami. Flaco came in. He was our drug carrier. He says, look, you need to get out of here, because we're fixing to do a hit here. Those people on your right, on the table, there were 6 Colombians laughing and drinking firewater, Colombian aguardiente. We're gonna spray that table, the whole table. And I said, all right, appreciate it. I said, let me get my guys, and I told everyone except Vanegas, Negro. He was in the bathroom snorting coke. Colonel Negro, because he was real dark. He was not black, he was just dark Colombian. So I went back to the bathroom, and I told him, I said, we gotta go, it's gonna be a shootout here. But I didn't tell him who. He said, just give me a minute. I walked out. Well, during that time, Vanegas had stopped at the same table and told the guys to leave because there was going to be a shootout. So he screwed up the hit. It was just an accident. He knew one of the guys at the table, so that he was just looking for his friend. I was outside. Vanegas came out. Behind Vanegas, everybody started pushing each other out. Flaco came in his motorcycle. He was pretty pissed off. He said, you guys fucked everything up. I should have never told you nothing. I said, what you talking about? One of you guys tipped them off because they didn't know. And the only person that knew we were going to do the hit was you guys. You. I said, yeah, man, I just told my guys to leave. I said, hold up, let me talk to Negro. I said, did you tell them people? He said, I told one of the guys there was going to be a shooting like you told me, but I didn't know it was that table. I said, we didn't deep shit, I went back when I said, yeah, we did it, man. It was an accident. He says, well, you're in trouble, man. Well, you're in trouble with my boss. The boss wants to meet you. Tell your boss there was an accident. He said, they don't want to hear it, man. Just you, he said. Boss wants to meet just you. Either that or you're in trouble. So we got in the car. On the way, I'm telling him, I said, these people are going to kill me, are they? He says, I don't know. I don't make no guarantees, man. We have fucked something up. And they talk about killing 6 people. So there ain't no pussies here. He asked me if I had a gun. I said, yeah, man, I got a gun. But I had 2 over there. I had a backup gun on my left leg. So we drove to a Holiday Inn on I-95, and I looked at him. 4 guys got out of our car. I said, is that them? He said, that's them. That's part of them. There's more to your left. And I looked, there was 4 other guys on the other side. I approached, the older guy was there. He says, you Rivi? I said, yes, I am. Come with me. Got on the back of a car, and in the back seat was a lady. She was calling the shots. Whatever she said, everybody would just keep quiet. Nobody gave an opinion. It was just whatever she was saying. And her husband was in the front seat. He didn't open his mouth. He's not asking me any questions, just her telling me what to do. She's the one with the power there. I'm getting this lip from a woman, and I don't have like say go fuck yourself or no. And she asked me, she said, you the one that fucked up the hit last night? And I said, in a way I did. And she told me I've been after these people for months, and that's the first time that we got sight on them, and I have fucked it up. She says, well, I'll tell you what, you find them and you kill them for me, and we call it even. I'm interested in the 2 brothers. The other 4 we were just gonna hit because they were sitting at the table. I said, you were gonna kill 4 other people just to kill 2? She said, that's the way I do my things. Spray the whole table. Get everybody out of the way. That surprised me, you know. I mean, she's talking to murder like. So I told her, I said, just give me a week. I find these people. And she said, when you do, you call me. I give you $50,000 for each. So on my way back, I started asking Flaco questions. I said, what's up with this lady, man? He says, she's the godmother. I said, well, you know, fill me out a little bit about the godmother. He says, I know her since Colombia. And she's deadly. If you don't deliver, she's gonna put a hit on you. She was the biggest back then. She was the godmother of the cocaine trade. So when we got back to the hotel, I told the guys what happened, and Vanegas was there. Well, I said, look, we in deep shit with this lady. If we don't find these people, we're gonna have to haul ass, because they're gonna come after. They told me in so many words. Vanegas, he said, yeah, I could get hold of one, the older one. I said, that's what we need, one. To him, we get the other one. I said, do this. Let's go to a payphone and beep him and set up a meeting for tonight. And we're gonna kidnap his ass, and we're gonna turn it over to these other people. We beeped him, no answer. Second day, we beeped, no answer. Third day, I was losing my hopes, no answer. Fourth day, he beeped the day I answered. He set up a meeting at the Ramada Inn. He told me that we had some guns and some explosives for sale. But the problem was, when he arrived at the hotel, he arrived with his kid. It was a 15-year-old boy, and we weren't counting no kid. So Vanegas, he made a smart move. He thought to leave the kid in the car. Otherwise, we had to take the kid with us too. He's talking, laughing with Vanegas. I'm behind a tree. And Vanegas opened the trunk. I came up behind the tree. I put a gun in his ribs. I said, I've been looking for you. So the guy says, how are you? Nothing. I said, no, you know, somebody else needs you. There's a lady looking for you. Her name is Griselda Blanco. And he said, that fat bitch, I don't want her nothing. So Kumbamba kicked him in the face, knocked his teeth out. He said, more respect for the lady. You tell her when you see her. We work for her. He turned white. He said, you're gonna meet her in a couple of hours. He started shaking. So about an hour later, they arrived. They took him. The next day, I'm at home at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. She comes to my house. She just comes in like she owns the house. And my wife was frying fish. She said, oh, I love fish. She's eating, telling me how they killed this guy and chop him up in little pieces while we were having dinner. I said, what are you talking about? You shot this guy? She said, yeah, I shot him. And Kumbamba cut him up and put him in a small box and wrapped him up like a gift with a little bow on top. And we left her a couple blocks from here on the turnpike. I said, in my neighborhood? She said, yeah. We're heading south to come and visit you. So we figured it was a good spot to drop him off. I just looked at her, I said, you joking, right? She said, no, for real. I said, you guys usually do that? She said, yeah, she likes it. She likes us to cut people up and just throw them like that. Griselda Blanco, she grew up with her mother in Medellin. Very poor. She was a prostitute. She started her criminal life as a pickpocket. Then they moved to New York. That's when they got into the drug business.
The first time I heard her name was the latter part of 1973. From the intelligence that we were given, she did figure as an emerging threat to the United States.
Her business grew.
She was a significant Colombian cocaine trafficker.
Rafa and Griselda, they were childhood friends.
So Rafa gave everything to her. In the mid-70s, Griselda got charged on a very large cocaine case in New York, probably the largest at the time, and she fled after that and took off.
There was a fugitive warrant issued for her. I lost track of her from the time of the indictment until I was transferred to Miami.
Well, we can't say for sure exactly when she was in Miami, probably 78. And we didn't know where, obviously, because she was a fugitive, and we knew she was a multi-kilo dealer.
In that very, very Latino culture, it's not usual that a woman would be the head of her own organization. So I figured that she had to have been one mean lady.
Griselda had to prove to all the other Colombians that she was worthy to keep the trade that they gave her.
And she liked people to fear her, and they did.
People were so afraid of her. Her reputation preceded her wherever she went.
I made a mistake of not knowing exactly who she was at first. I met her at Rafa's at a party, and I love Latin women. So I went to Rafa, and I said, what's her story? And Rafa said, oh, no, you're not getting involved with her. And I said, why not? He says, if you fuck this woman, I'm going to have to kill her. So I went to Max, and I said to Max, what's the woman's story? And Max started telling me these stories.
She was a hypochondriac.
She was pretty decadent.
She gave me a brand new Ferrari for Christmas. It was $80,000.
She collected wealth.
Her Christmas present was always like that, Spencer.
Eva Peron's ring.
And Jordan and stuff.
A bad freebase cocaine user and abuser.
A lesbian as well.
Paranoid.
Beyond the movies. I mean, I don't even think Miami Vice would be this flamboyant. Of course, she had the three older sons.
Her last son, they named him Michael Corleone Sepulveda, which is fucking incredible.
As far as her murders go, my God.
They called her the Black Widow because she had killed a couple of her husbands or had them killed.
This woman literally slits men's throats after she sleeps with them.
I don't know how many times she did that.
Well, she's not gonna do that because Rafa's gonna tell her that, you know. And Max was like, don't make a difference. She could be bugged out one night and you sleep with her and she'll slit your throat. And what's gonna happen here? It's gonna be a war.
Griselda was worse than any of the men that were involved in this.
First homicide of note that she's involved with is Dayland.
That's when Griselda's crew walked into the liquor store and blew his head off. Well, half his head off.
Which, of course, is July 1979.
I guess he was dying for a drink.
And that's what established her as one of the most violent traffickers known.
That's what it really started right there, the cocaine wars.
As we started seeing more homicides, the role of Griselda Blanco became very, very prominent in what we were calling the cocaine wars.
She killed a lot of Colombians and a lot of Cubans to get her position in life.
Wherever they go, they take their special brand of viciousness with them. This woman, known as La Madrina, the godmothers.
She was responsible for the majority of the homicides that occurred in South Florida during those days.
1979, 80, 81, and 82. Those were the years where she did her killing in Dade County.
Griselda Blanco, she was really an angel of death.
I don't know that any other organization can be attributed to the number of homicides that go back to Griselda. I just don't.
And it could be over something as simple as she was in a restaurant the night before.
We went to the Penrods on the beach.
She could be eating at a table and the owner gave her a problem or something.
There was this big guy there, started running his mouth. He got smart with me too.
And she decided, well, fuck this owner, I'm gonna destroy his business.
That's all right. We left.
And these guys would come on motorcycles and they'd turn around on the back of the motorcycles and just spray everybody waiting on line to get into the place and everything.
And they machine gun his ass down right in front of the door. Yeah, they were trying to pin on me, but I was out of town, so he must have messed with the wrong people.
Riverita became Griselda's main enforcer.
She was always with me and 3 or 4 guys.
She had an army with her.
A rogue cast of characters.
Her crew was almost like you would see in the movies.
She had Paco.
Paco Sepulveda, Diego Sepulveda,
Toto,
Carlos Venegas, Alonzo Ayala.
Just ragtag guys, you know, like the gang that couldn't shoot straight.
Hugo.
Guillermo Velasquez.
Only they actually could hit people.
Cumbamba.
Monteco, Diego Escobar, Oscar Murillo.
Jaime Bravo.
They were mainly enforcers / hitmen.
This is how they made their living. Some people are pharmacists and others are garbage men, and these are killers. And that's all that they did.
Chucho Castro was her chief enforcer.
To me, he was one of the best enforcers that Griselda ever had. I mean, he's a legend. He always got his man. Osvaldo was Griselda's son. And back then, he was 15.
Wanted to live fast.
I mean, he was carrying guns and stuff, you know. He was stealing 300, 400 kilos of cocaine a month.
I mean, and this is all orchestrated by the mother. He wanted to look like Don Corleone, you know, and act like him. And he did.
Cocky attitude because of his mom. You're a smart ass. He was in a Faces nightclub in Coconut Grove with his buddies and his girlfriend, and Chucho lived near there. So Osvaldo, he figured, well, I go camp over here at Chucho's house. He drove his car right to the front lawn, almost to the front door, skidding the tires on there, making a whole bunch of noise. So Chucho came out. So he told him, you know, to get the hell out of his house. So he said, well, if you don't let me spend the night, tell my mom. So Chucho said, I don't give a fuck who you tell. I don't give a fuck about your mom. Tell your mom that I said to fuck herself. Chucho kicked him in the ass. They told him, get back in your car, get the hell out of here. Tell your mom that I kicked your ass. So when the kid went back home, told his mom. And, you know, that's one thing about that. You couldn't touch your kids. It didn't matter who it was. That person would die.
There was always somebody that did something wrong. Whether they did or not, there was a reason for her to have a problem with them.
I was called that afternoon to her house. She said, I notified him that we have war, that he's no longer my friend, he's my enemy. So from this point on, if you see him, shoot him.
Rivy and his people were deployed in this area.
But it wasn't going to be easy, because he's good. You make a mistake, we won't get him, or we're going to get killed by this guy here.
Rivy, a driver, and a second gunman were in a white van.
I was going to be the shooter, so I grabbed an M16. And I just told the driver, when you get near him, you know, window to window, let me know, and I fired through the door. Because I knew if I opened the door, when we were moving, he was gonna know. He knew all the tricks.
Chucho opened up the garage door, drove out of his garage onto 168th Street, and then drove west towards US 1.
US 1, where the light was, it was about half a mile away. So we had plenty of time.
Somewhere in this area would have been where they would have, you know, caught up with Chucho, gone parallel with him, both westbound, man to the left, Chucho to the right.
And I grabbed a machine gun and started shooting his tires, trying to blow his tires out. He lost control of the car one time. He almost hit a wall, but he took control and came back on the road this time.
And it's about that time they're approaching US 1.
By that time, we were real close to the red light. It was a gas station on the right-hand side.
As they approach US 1, Chucho then cuts through this gas station parking lot at a real high rate of speed, goes north on US 1, and that's when he loses the guy shooting at him.
Well, look everywhere. We didn't see him. So we just left. We said, you know, let's fucked it up. Well, the next day, Griselda called me. She says his son got killed. His son was in the back of the car sleeping. And the bullets went right to the trunk of the car and hit him in the head. I said, we never saw him. Because if I would have seen it, we would have never touched that car. She says, he told me to tell you that he's going to get with you. Because he saw you. I said, that's fine.
Chucho is actually a fugitive, a federal fugitive. He was involved in trafficking. There was a warrant for his arrest from DEA. And that was the primary reason he was not going to get involved with reporting this thing to the police. He returned back home, put the baby in a bathtub, put ice around the baby so the baby would be preserved all evening. He and his wife spent the entire evening crying with his baby in the bathtub. The following day, he called the police to let us know where to find the body.
This is the phone calls that Jesus made to the complaint room. Please, I just left the body without life of a baby they killed yesterday. Excuse me, yesterday some banditos that were in a white van shoot me with a machine gun. And the boy was sitting and they killed him. It's 7th Avenue and 53rd Street. The body of the boy they killed yesterday, the banditos.
This is the mosque where the body of Johnny Castro was placed. Chucho was looking for the church where Johnny Castro had been confirmed months earlier, was unable to find the church, and this is the best he could do. He found this mosque, which was in the same neighborhood.
The child was wrapped in a sheet. In his hands was 3 roses, a rose for each year of the child's age, and I think passport. Here it is. He knew they needed a passport to show who he was. He was born March 10th, 1979. So he was almost 3 years old. Almost 2 years old. We realized that it's a Colombian child because of the passport and so forth. We made contact with Sergeant Singleton, Sentak, and his people. We knew it was Griselda Blanco, her group. We had gotten the name of Riverita, but nothing concrete, you know, no picture to say, okay, this is who you're looking for. Nothing like that.
I can't think of any other case where there was a child killed.
Little Johnny Castro shot just because he happened to be sitting next to his father, who was Colombian and a target of some of the cocaine cowboys.
I was a rookie homicide detective, only been up there less than a year. And my son was about the same age at that time.
People always ask me, you know, have bodies ever bothered you? And never, other than this one case.
I mean, that really hit me, you know, real hard. Because I had kids that age. It was an innocent baby, you know. She says, well, fuck it, you know. At least we got him. I mean, she wasn't sorry about it, you know. She's like she didn't give a shit.
Even though the Colombians were wild in the way they did things, she would just do it even in a stupid way.
But it bothered a lot of people, not just here in the United States, it bothered people in Colombia.
Everybody would tell them this woman's out of control and she's gonna ruin everybody's business.
It came back from those shores. Word to her that let's just get whoever's involved and let's try to avoid killing innocent people.
And the only thing that I remember the Colombians wanted of her was really to stay out of Miami as much as possible.
So she got a lot of hate from down there, but she says, you know what, fuck them all. I do what I want up here. If they don't like it, they could come after me too. Flat out, you know.
I would hear conversations in Spanish with Rafa because I was sitting in his house. That motherfucking girl, again, she did this to me, now what am I gonna do? And I know he'd call down there and he'd ask the guys down there, what do you want me to do? And somehow this girl got a pass every time because she should have been dead a long time before her time, a long time.
Back to work.
Riverita, he became Griselda's most favored enforcer.
Sort of like security. Like I was like head of security. Nobody knew where she lived but me. Most of the meetings took place in Rafa's house and Max's house. I met Max the first time at his home, matter of fact. I went there with Griselda. From that point on, I never liked him. So I used to tell Griselda, I said, don't trust this motherfucker. I don't trust him. I said, listen, if you don't stay away from this guy, he's gonna put you in prison. Next time I run to this guy, I'm gonna shoot him. He will run and tell Rafa. And they will come back and make sure nothing happens to Max, you know, take care of Max. He's my compadre. I said, fuck Max. I'm gonna shoot that motherfucker. He says, you gonna kill me? I said, not right now, but I will later.
I mean, you had to respect him because the guy, he came in with like tough talk, guns, and all these people with him. You're talking about a guy, anybody coming in anywhere with an entourage, you go, this guy is somebody.
I didn't go around flashing and stuff like that. You know, I had my house in Miami, in Palm Beach. I had a house in San Agustin, 2 houses in Chicago, my cars. I had plenty of cars. I buy them for my girlfriends too. My wife, a couple girlfriends. That life, you gotta keep a couple. You know, it was what I wanted, what I like. I saw on the street, I bought it. You know, I didn't have to worry about the price.
I don't know, show business kind of, that type of thing.
A handsome guy, he spoke English, had a lot of charisma.
That's one of the reasons that she liked me so much, because I grew up in this country. I just didn't come across the water and and put me on the street.
Although he was as bad and probably killed more than any of the other ones.
I came from a good family, but I grew up on the streets in Chicago. I was a bad boy from the very beginning.
A stone cold killer.
To tell you the truth, I didn't like the guy very much because he used to brag to me about like people that he had killed and that sort of thing.
I told him I rolled my window down and I shot him with a Mac 11 on the face.
I don't want to hear, oh, we killed this guy here, there. It was like...
They're not kill anywhere in the United States or anywhere in Europe. Anywhere they send me, I'll do it.
I don't want to hear about it, bragging about stuff.
As far as working in U.S. soil, I was the best.
It was unnerving in a way, you know, because he was an enforcer for this woman or whatever, you know, whatever he was.
And he was the guy during the years 82 to 84 that she used to basically exclusively to do her killings.
Reputation was that once I went after you, I will get you. If you run, I'm going to catch you.
If there was a drug debt to be collected, he was sent to collect it.
A lot of her customers, sometimes they were late. And she said, well, if you're not here tomorrow, I'll send Ruby after you. Oh, no, don't send him.
Alfredo Lorenzo was a drug customer of Griselda Blanco.
Griselda ordered me to deliver 5 kilos of cocaine to them. Back then, it was a $50,000 each. It was $250,000.
Had been given cocaine on consignment.
That was the way Griselda did it. She says, how many days you need to pay me back? Well, a week. Okay, I'm going to give you 2 weeks. When those 2 weeks were up, she didn't want the money. She wanted the person's life.
Rivy was sent to collect the debt.
I went to his house, to pick up the money. Oh, excuses. He says, tell her that to give me more credit and I'll come up with the money. I didn't say nothing to him. I just felt sorry for him.
Rivy realized that Lorenzo was giving him a line of bullshit, basically. And when he reported that back to Griselda...
She says, well, you know what to do.
Well, then his fate was sealed.
With Griselda, you didn't pay, you die.
Even the mafia would have some kind of code of honor.
The Italians would think and try to figure out, how am I going to get my money back? And maybe after I got my money, they would beat him to a pulp, but he was fine. 3 weeks later, he'd heal. As the Colombians came in, there was no beating people up. You know, the hot-blooded Latins, they don't think first. They act first, and then they think afterwards. Even though they might kill the whole family, then they think to themselves, oh my God, I screwed myself out of my, how am I going to get my money when it's too late to actually get the money?
It's not about the money, it's just to prove a point. Don't rip me off, don't fuck with me, because I kill you, or I send somebody after you.
She said, kill him, and then they did.
Miguel got on my right and Oscar Murillo, Ñato. He gets on the left and I knock on the door. Alfredo opened the door. As soon as he opened the door, Miguel put a gun in his ribs. I signaled him to be quiet. I asked her where was his wife at. She said he's in the kitchen cooking. So I went and got her and she says, I know what's gonna go on. The only thing I'm asking for is don't hurt my kids.
3 children, 2 daughters, 1 son. The daughters' ages, I believe, are 6 and 4, and I think the son was like a baby.
I said, no, I'm not gonna hurt your kids, Griselda, when she gave me the orders to kill them, I figured I was just gonna do him. When I was talking to her, I heard 2 shots, a couple pops. I knew what was done. Miguel had shot Alfredo. So I told Oscar, I said, watch her, I'll be right back. I went to the next room. I talked to Miguel. I said, done? He says, done. While we're talking, I heard this scream. And then I hear a machine gun go off. So I'm back to the room. That's what happened. He said, she tried to jump me. So Oscar fired, and she's been shot about 10, 15 times in the chest, but she was still alive. But she's making these weird noises, moaning, blood's coming out of her mouth, you know. She's dying. So I grabbed Miguel's gun. It was a .380 with silence, and I shot it twice behind the head. Put her out of her misery. I thought, well, let's get out of here. But Miguel tells me, no, Cristiano told me to kill everybody in the house. That's what we're talking about. Some of the kids left. He said, no, I'm gonna kill the kids. I said, no, you're not. He's telling me, she told me that she will pay me extra for them, so I'm gonna make the money. I said, no, you're not gonna kill no kids. Well, he's walking towards the kids where they're at. So I put my gun out, and I told him to leave the goddamn house. So Miguel got real mad. You gotta get the little girls. I said, no. This is it. It's time to go. Get out of here. So I had to get them out of there at gunpoint.
Alfredo and Griselda Lorenzo were found shot and killed in June of 1982 in their home. It was a modest home in the Rhodes section of Miami.
Well, back in 1982, I had just recently gone to the Centex squad. Received a call from Nelson Andrew, who was a homicide detective with the city of Miami. Bodies were in separate rooms of the house, and whoever committed the homicide left the children right inside the house with the dead parents. They actually found the two daughters and the son playing with the bloody dead body of their mother inside the house.
We got paid. So I explained to her what happened. I told her, I said, we didn't do the kids. She got pissed. She said the order was to kill everybody. I mean, when she said everybody, it means everybody. I said, yeah, I made the decision to leave the kids alone. Why? I said, they're just babies. But after Johnny Costa, when the baby got killed, I guess she got used to after that, killing kids. She liked to be at war. Every day she was talking about it. We got to get so-and-so, we got to get so-and-so, we got to get rid of him. It was something that she enjoyed. She was at war with Papa Mejia, and he used to be an enforcer for Griselda years back. Apparently he ripped her off, and he went on his own, and he declared war on Griselda.
Homicide investigators learned several weeks ago that a big shipment of cocaine worth several $1 million from Colombia never arrived here. Police say it was headed to New York City.
And that's one thing that she didn't forget or forgive. So I go to New York to kill everybody that was working for Papa Mejia, all his crew. Broke all the rules there too.
The words that the person that I spoke to was there was going to be a bloodbath.
From the stashers to the hitmen, 11 people. They all got killed. 11 people. In less than 24 hours. It was supposed to be 12, but I let one go.
Homicide detectives are now contacting New York police to investigate any similarities between any drug hits in the New York area and the recent drug assassinations here in South Florida.
They wanted war. So Griselda took the first step.
We're now at the Mall of the Americas, which back in 1981 was called the Pan American Mall.
So we get to the mall, I set up all the cars where we want them at.
This is the scene of the Octavio Mejia homicide. He was Papo's father. Basically, when Mejia left the shopping mall, they ambushed him. And he was shot numerous times by several different gunmen.
A lot of people was pissed because they claimed that he wasn't part of the war between Papo and Griselda. So more people flip on Griselda. She created more enemies. Well, she didn't give a shit. She liked that. What I didn't know, his son was there, Papo. He was in the car while his father went in the mall. I was pissed off because I missed him. I'm gonna get him a different way. Somebody had tipped us off. He had a new house in Killian Parkway. So Griselda says, you're not gonna miss this time, are you? I said, no, I'm gonna blow the whole house up. She said, what are you talking about? I said, I'm gonna put a bomb, kill everybody. And I got about 200 sticks of dynamite. The goddamn explosion was so loud. First thing we looked was the roof come out of the house. The house came apart. The neighbor, all his windows were busted. The cars around the neighborhood, all the windows were busted. I just want to get to the good news that they found somebody in there. Turns out I missed again. The house was empty.
This is just one more, skirmish in the Griselda Blanco Mejia, conflict.
2 weeks later, they had just gotten word that Papa Mejia was on the next flight to Miami, and he's by himself. Griselda, she says, well, we're gonna get him at the airport. You are. She reached under one of the tables and stuff and hands me a bayonet, 16-inch bayonet. She said, I want you to kill him with this. She want him stabbed to death. I said, what's this? Chin styles or something, you know? They call him the pig. She want him killed like a pig. She offered me $500,000. She said, yeah, but you have to get him inside. I said, no, I don't go inside the airport. She said, why not? I said, no, it's a suicide mission. I don't do suicide missions.
Max Mermelstein and Riverita both strongly advised against this bizarre hit.
I'm not going into the airport and stab this guy to death because I'm going to go to jail. Gotta get somebody else. She said, oh, I got somebody else. I said, who? She said, Miguel Perez, Miguelito.
Well, Miguelito was kind of like Rivy with no class.
I mean, Miguel told me one day if the money was right, he would walk up to the White House and kill the president.
This is a picture that was taken of him shortly after he arrived here in 1982 on the Mariel boat lift.
He was one of the scariest guys I've ever really encountered in my career.
That's when they got the reputation, the Marilitos. Fearless Marilitos.
He was more physically intimidating. He was bigger than Rivy, stronger physically than Rivy. He's the kind of guy that you look at and you think to yourself, you know, this guy can snap at any moment and go off and probably just snap your neck.
I talked to Miguel. He was all for it. He said, yeah, I'm going to do it. You know, they're going to give me $250,000 plus a house to get him inside the airport. I told Miguel, I said, if you go in there, I won't back you up.
But Miguelito just said, screw it, and he went and did it.
The only thing I'm going to do for you, I'm going to show you Papa, point him up to you.
They knew what flight he was on, when he was arriving, and they were here waiting for him.
So sure enough, here comes Papa. The last thing he expected was a nigger to hit him.
And as he walked out from customs, a man came up with a bayonet.
Miguel's coming from behind him, puts him in the chokehold, picks him up, and starts stabbing him.
The bayonet, several times.
I counted 6 or 7. I mean, everybody in the airport was like, with their mouths open, like this. Everybody's in shock, nobody's saying nothing. Drops him on the floor, and he takes off running. That's when everybody starts screaming.
Police, of course, ran to the area where this person was stabbed. They pointed out the direction that Miguel had fled in, and within moments, caught up with him.
Finally, the officer tackles Miguel. He lands about 3 feet away from me. And Miguel's looking at me like saying, help me, you know, with his eyes. But I just shook my hand and I said, That's nothing I could do. There was police officers coming from every direction. They took him into custody, and we just left.
This is really over the top because this place, even back then, pretty much crawls with police. There are police on every concourse. And to attempt something like that, it's insane, really. And obviously, it turned out that way because he was caught.
But that's the kind of person that Miguelito was. He didn't care. He had a job to do, and whatever it takes, you gave him a guy to kill, and that's what he did.
But Papo survived the stabbings. And Miguel was eventually convicted of attempted murder, sentenced to, I believe, 15 years.
That's the last time I saw Miguel.
That was the last overt act I know of as far as the Mejia-Griselda Blanco war.
Griselda Blanco was the catalyst for the recognition by the United States government that Miami had a serious problem, that we were really a Dodge City.
It was out of fucking control.
Believe it or not, when people start getting shot or getting killed, a lot of heat comes from it.
You had this goose that kept laying golden eggs. Why mess it up?
And that was all because of the violence. It wasn't because, there were so many drugs coming. They didn't have a clue as to how many drugs were coming. They started forming special groups.
A special anti-narcotics detective squad known as Centec 26.
I mean, I had guys chasing me. I never, who the heck, what do you, I don't even know who these people were, you know what I mean? Where'd they come from?
Prosecutors expect more arrests of drug dealers in the near future.
Reagan had been elected.
We need to get the president to come to Dade County to talk to the widow of a taxi cab driver whose head's been blown away.
The cocaine wars, the level of violence, the homicide rate, the cover of time, Paradise Lost, led to action. Vice President Bush's task force on violent crime in South Florida flooding Miami with federal agents.
It is a joint operation with the state people, local police officials, Coast Guard, Customs.
South Florida cannot be a haven for criminals, for sophisticated and organized drug traffickers, for hired assassins.
Finally, the rest of the United States was waking up to it, that it was not a Miami problem, it was a national problem.
This initiative will bring together all our resources to combat the major drug traffic and the crime problems of Miami.
After they sent a telegram to the president imploring him to put Homestead Air Force Base on a war footing to intercept, stop, and shoot down if necessary. drug-laden, clandestine aircraft or vessels which are trying to smuggle narcotics into Florida.
We have an unidentified vessel just west of West End, Grand Bahama. Can you send an aircraft out to visually ID him?
I have received authorization from the government of Colombia to fire into your vessel.
2160, aye.
Please, stop. Tell him to stop and I will stop.
Been hit. Got smoke.
And agents say their dockside test confirms they got a ton of cocaine, worth $31 million wholesale, a cool $1 billion on the street.
The amount of drugs that was seized in this area has gone up 2,500%.
The net weight appears to be somewhere around 3,700 pounds. It's by far the largest seizure ever made by the federal government. In fact, I would say it's 4 times the largest we've ever made.
Are you saying that it will no longer be possible to smuggle drugs into the United States?
No, I never said that.
What are you saying? What claims do you make for the
It's becoming progressively more difficult.
The good news is that Miami's runaway crime rate has been brought under control, that there is now a full-scale commitment on the part of citizens, government, police, and our courts to wage a battle against the criminal enemy.
And it really was the beginning of the end of the cocaine Cowboys era.
The murder rate has certainly come down since 1980. There's been like a 50% decrease in the inner city and about a 30% decrease in the suburbs.
So it was just too much police and a lot of heat on TV. So I told Griselda, I said, it's getting real hot here. Let's take a vacation somewhere. She said, yeah, we're thinking about moving the operations to California. Great, are you going with me? I'm done with the killing. I got enough money. I'm going back to Chicago.
Now that we know, in hindsight, that she left the area back around 1984, clearly the homicide rate went down in that time period.
I was happy to leave Miami because I knew all this heat that was around me, and she didn't want to understand this.
Faced with the fact that the whole organization had relocated to California, and I'm a Miami agent, I had to convince my superiors that it was worthwhile for me to investigate a case in California.
I knew it was just a matter of time before they came after us.
I said, if I ever get her, I'm going to give her a kiss on the cheek.
So she went to California and started her business out there. Rafa didn't want to really send product out there, so she decided to become friendly with Marta to get the cocaine.
She was a relative of the Ochoas.
Well, I don't need Rafa, I can get everything I want this way. And she did. And Max says to me, there isn't going to be any coke for a while because there's a big problem here. Griselda's decided she doesn't want to pay for like 1,500 kilos or something. And I said, well, what does that have to do with us? Well, the Ochoas don't want to send anything until everything is straightened out.
I said, Griselda says, I want to kill this bitch. I said, who would that be? She said, this bitch.
Griselda's answer was if she killed Marta, there would never be any proof whether she gave the money to Marta and Marta didn't send the money to her family.
I started telling Griselda, I said, if this is done, your business goes down the drain. Ain't no place for us to hide, nowhere in the world. They're gonna chase you for the rest of your life. No, it needs to be done. I said, this doesn't need to be done.
That was her out. I'm just gonna kill Marta and then I'm gonna say I gave her the money. And this way they can come to me, hey, I don't know where the money is, I gave it to her.
I told Griselda, I said, what are you gonna do? She said, just kill her. As soon as she walked in and she saw Griselda, she shit on herself. She said, Madrina, godmother, what have I done to you? Griselda says, nothing.
She was kidnapped and then murdered and found on the side of a road.
Obviously, she was blood, Marta, and you couldn't kill Marta.
That's when another war started.
And this is what all blew up in her face.
Everybody turned on her. Rafa, which was her best friend, flipped on her.
And I remember Rafa and everybody
from the cartel
deciding, well, I think we're going to have to kill this woman.
There was a price on Griselda's head.
They told her, whenever we see you, we are going after you.
Max getting in trouble. That was the beginning of the end.
He knew he had a problem. He should have smoked it, but he didn't. He didn't think it was coming to him.
Max calls me up. He said, I think I got some heat. I'm getting in my car and I'm going for a ride. You stay on the cell phone with me. Okay, Max, I'll stay on the phone with you.
So Max gets in his car and drives out.
He gets out of his driveway. He says, uh-oh, they're coming from every direction.
I knew I was under surveillance. The marked cars blocked off my path, and the next thing I know, I had 40 guns pointing at me.
End of the conversation.
And they arrested him. That was the last we saw of Max.
I got like millions of dollars buried in garbage bags in my lawn. That night, I'm out there with a flashlight digging up bags of money because I'm afraid they're coming. And I lived on the Everglades. I jumped in a canoe I had with like, I'm not exact, $6 to $8 million, threw it in the canoe, paddled to the other side and buried it in the Everglades, thinking they're coming to my house. Nobody came, nothing happened.
Nobody thought there was going to be any problem.
Mickey and everybody said, well, I haven't seen any problems when the last plane that landed, you know, everything seemed to be fine. I said, okay, well, then let's just keep going until we find out.
John said there was no reason to be worried. We thought John was so smart.
I remember September 20th for the simple reason that I couldn't sleep. At that particular night, I was working with Mickey and his crew. And because I couldn't sleep, I decided that I would go to a radio room that we had set up here in Miami to monitor the incoming planes.
It was a regular trip. The only thing that was unusual, and it should have given it away, it was real quiet on the radio. Of course, they know that we listen to everything.
To tell you the truth, I looked around when I drove up because I was still paranoid for Max, and I saw nothing. Nothing at all.
Everything went as usual.
The plane landed. I said, oh man, another good trip. I'm going home. I feel great.
And as soon as the airplane landed, went in the barn, they showed up in helicopters and all kinds of people jumped out with guns everywhere.
I heard a noise. It was like the place was hit with lightning or thunder.
And the guys that were in the airplane, they all ran.
And they just drove this truck probably 60 miles an hour through the front door.
It was a simultaneous bus, Tampa with Miami.
They came in there all in black and with these night goggles and masks, and it was like, I said, what am I, back in Vietnam here? You know, this is nuts.
I went out the back door.
Like, what am I gonna shoot it out with you guys?
A small confrontation with one of the guys.
Get on the floor and shut up. Yeah, all right. And they looked at me at first, and I'll never forget, Roberts, what are you doing here? I said, I guess I fucked up, huh? He said, you fucked up, man. We would have come to your house later, but what are you doing? You made it easy for us. I couldn't sleep, man. He said, well, it's too bad. And when I got downtown, I heard on the radio, they're shooting, there's gunfire, bang, there's all kinds of war. I said, what's going on here? You know, what, is this involving me? That's your plane, that's your farm up there. There's gunfire, they're shooting.
They were running all over, they were shooting guns.
Your friend shooting at us. My friend, Mickey.
They tried to burn the airplane.
Mickey had a flare gun, and around the plane there were gasoline tanks which were used to refuel the plane to get out of there.
I pushed one over.
Well, Mickey wanted to escape, so he shot the flare gun.
So I hit the swamp. I watched the show all day long.
And they couldn't find him, and they were chasing him through the woods all night.
These people went nuts.
Early this morning, Customs and FBI agents began a roundup of 12 people authorities say helped transport nearly 20,000 pounds of cocaine into this country by sea and by air from Colombia. One of the men behind the scheme was fugitive Michael Mundy.
The Mundy organization transported cocaine from Colombia using aircraft making direct flights and aircraft in combination with small boats where the aircraft dropped the loads in the Bahamas.
It wasn't their cocaine, and they didn't sell cocaine on the streets. All they did was transport for other people and charge a fee for that transportation. Basically a contract service.
Many of those shipments were attached to a highly sophisticated homing beacon that allowed the bad guys to find their drugs when authorities were not around.
This transmits a radio signal as well as having infrared light so they can see it with, at night with infrared goggles. So this shows how sophisticated they were.
Max Mermelstein becomes a witness, wants to talk about, among other things, murders in Miami. We're going to debrief this guy.
And quite frankly, at first, I didn't believe 75% of what he said. It was just too outlandish.
Max rolled.
He rolled over on all of us.
And started cooperating with them in jail.
I told John, he didn't listen to me.
I told him from day one that Max was weak, that he would snitch on us later, down the road. And, that's why I wanted to kill him so bad. They wouldn't let me,
The government had no idea, and honest to God, if it wasn't for Max Mermelstein,
I don't think they would have ever caught us.
He filled in the gaps.
They knew nothing of where the farm was. They knew nothing of our trips. They knew nothing. We had been working for like 5 years.
Max was like family. I never figured he'd do what he did.
They came the next day and they busted our gate, seized the house.
We were able to seize property in the value of $130 million in the Florida area.
35 Paso Fino breeding horses and 35 acres of ranch land in Marion County, Florida was also confiscated.
It's front page newspaper the next day. And everybody was all over me. I mean, people wanting to kill me because they said John owed him money. People that had his money certainly weren't giving it to me.
And Max made the indictment against Mickey and me.
When I'm reading the indictments, I'm also just like, holy shit. I didn't realize that he was actually working with the cartel. I didn't know Rafa was in the car. I didn't know any of this. I mean, I'm not saying I didn't know anything. I'm just saying that nobody realized the magnitude of what John was involved in.
You get on a trip where you're making so much money that you were just so powerful that it wasn't gonna happen.
And I remember the day he was, sitting in the chair crying like a baby, that he had to leave everything he loved. And
I have nobody to blame but myself, nobody.
Time to go, you gotta go.
Every day I talked to her, she said, no, you were wrong, he's not a rat, I said, he's working for the police, that's why I'm not near you, because you're gonna go to jail, but I ain't going with you. Oh, come to Los Angeles. I said, no, I'm all right over here.
We located a small house that they had rented. We knew that she was in the residence, so we found her, and in we went. I went upstairs and found her sitting in bed reading the Bible. And I just walked up to her, obviously had my weapon drawn. She was pretty startled. You would never think that she was a violent, homicidal maniac.
They arrested her at home.
And then I gave her a little kiss on the cheek, as I promised I would to the agents many, many months earlier.
Police are saying she may be responsible for as many as 200 murders. That over a period of more than a decade of drug wars. Tonight, an arrest that could bring down one of South Florida's most infamous crime figures.
Days later, they arrested her kids. Everything crumbled for real, I'm just looking now for myself. Everybody's in prison except me, and they're looking for me now.
About the same time, he and his brothers are en route to the airport in a stolen vehicle. They get stopped by the sheriff's office. Resist arrest. They got cocaine on them, so they are in custody.
Ever since then, I've been in custody.
Eventually, the drug market was seriously dismembered by law enforcement, and a lot of that money kind of disappeared. And as drug merchants were being prosecuted, convicted, and imprisoned, a remarkable thing happened. The businesses that they frequented and supported started drying up and closing down.
The Sunshine State Bank is out of business. Sunshine State allegedly was bought with laundered drug money.
All of the nightclubs dried up. Car dealerships started to go broke. Jewelry shops.
The real estate values are deteriorating tremendously. The businesses as such have been suffering tremendously.
And that collapse created new opportunity. The economy of Miami was kept together by speculators who had made a lot of money in the drug trades. If you were a car dealer whose sales went from $20 million a year to $60 million a year for 10 years, you've got an extra $500 million kicking around.
It might not have been there if you didn't have the horrors of the cocaine cowboys, absolutely.
Drugs destroy a community when you're dealing with street level. When you're talking about drug dealing on a level where major drug dealers are living here, vacationing here, buying homes, laundering their money and so forth, that picks up the economy of a city or of a community.
And a lot of the money secretly did go into infrastructure.
$2.3 billion worth of construction is currently underway in downtown Miami.
The general construction and everything in downtown and on Brickell.
Downtown Development Authority officials say another $1 billion worth of construction will be in progress within the next 6 to 8 months.
It built half the city. It built the high-rises, it built the scrapes.
This building boom, they say, will last for the next 10 years.
The drug trade saved Miami in a lot of ways. If you look out at this skyline, a lot of this real estate was built or bought and paid for with drug money.
This new construction means at least 25,000 additional jobs and an annual payroll in the millions. The new condominiums, office buildings, and banks will add an additional $20 million to the city of Miami's tax base.
As you had the cocaine coming into Miami, and as you had the millions of dollars going into Latin America, legitimate Miami also realized we're the gateway to the Americas.
The drug trade certainly put Miami on the map.
Newsweek has called Miami America's Casablanca. What a contrast from 7 years ago.
One thing about the horrible publicity, there was a lot of it. Miami was on everyone's lips.
Miami.
To Miami Beach. Everywhere in the world.
People said, you know, I've always wanted to go to Miami. Is it really like this? The beaches I see and the beautiful women and the nightclubs.
It's called Club 1235. It's the place where that big Miami Vice Bash was held Saturday night.
We were on TV every Friday night, prime time with Miami Vice. The storylines were based entirely on drug trafficking.
Miami Vice may not enhance the city's image, but it's doing great things for the local economy.
Don Johnson and Miami Vice and Al Pacino and Scarface.
It was alluring.
This is Miami. Things are more relaxed.
It was interesting because when Miami Vice came out, they would find an old dilapidated or abandoned hotel or gas station on Miami Beach. They'd put in neon, they'd paint it, they'd fix it up, they'd rehab it and shoot their scenes there and leave a rehabilitated site behind. And I think they made a lot of people see what the possibilities were.
In the late 80s and early 90s, the European modeling industry discovered South Beach. And of course, after the models come the wealthy European visitors who are chasing the models.
And we ended up getting the glitterati.
It reminds me of Greenwich Village, 1965, because it's happening and it's new.
Then the paparazzi took it from there and created a phenomenon.
Took it from a predominantly sleepy vacation spot to a thriving international capital of the Americas.
And the world again started to flock to Miami. We made it.
I think we could have had a renaissance without so many people having to die for it. I could have lived without it, and so could a lot of other people have lived without the enormous contribution of money to this community. There was too much collateral damage.
I don't think the economic benefits were worth the costs on society.
I still love Miami, but I think I love it more for what it was before the cocaine wars. I mean, at what price a skyline? How many people have to die for a shiny skyline? It wasn't worth it. Too many people died for it.
But Miami, honestly, couldn't be where it is now without having to go through the horrors and tragedies of the 70s and 80s.
Today, people kind of get a kick out of talking about how they survived the 70s and 80s in Miami.
I came back here because I had to come back here. I had no choice. And when I first got out, I'll never forget, I went to the hotel on South Beach. It was called the Surf Coma. And the first morning I woke up, I remember going to the beach. I was laying there, and here comes this girl out of the water. And as she's walking out of the water, I see she's got no top on. And you gotta realize, I'm in jail now, 11 years or something, and I'm looking at this girl with no top on. I'm saying, my God, I got scared. I ran back to the room, and I wouldn't even come out of the room for like a day. I was so like, what happened? The whole world has changed here, you know?
The city had grown so much in the 12 years that I was gone.
I don't know, you know, times change. Back then, we just didn't give a shit.
Miami back then was an open town. It was completely different.
I mean, if you told me you want to kill so-and-so, all I asked you was just point him out to me, and I went and shot him.
Now it's not open anymore, you know? It's a different town.
These days, I wouldn't do it. I'll do it differently, totally different.
It's a much different city than I remember it. And a lot of people I know, you know, they're not around anymore.
My friends that we grew up together, they're all dead. They got killed. I went to Miami, I pleaded guilty to the 3 murders.
A life sentence on each case to be served concurrently.
I've been here ever since.
As a result of the information given to us by Rivy, there were 14 different homicides closed on Griselda Blanco's organization. When he flipped and told us chapter and verse about all these different homicides and how she ordered them, then she was done. She was essentially our John Gotti, and Rivy was our Sammy the Bull Gravano.
The case against Griselda Blanco turned out to be like a total dud.
It was incredibly disappointing and frustrating.
She ended up pleading to like basically a walk in the park.
Through the cracks, yeah. I thought we had her.
I mean, it was shameful what happened.
So once we lost Rivy, then we lost the connection between the hit guys and Griselda.
Riverita created the case and destroyed the case.
Basically torpedoed one of the most significant homicide investigations that I can even imagine being done.
During the course of her reign of terror, if you will, she made a lot of enemies, both here and in Colombia. And they haven't forgotten, and they certainly haven't forgotten with respect to Uber and Osvaldo.
The saying that live by the sword and die by the sword is very true in the business they were in.
And it's likely that if she's ever returned to Colombia, that she'll meet the same fate.
There's certainly nobody more deserving of the death penalty than she is. She should be on death row. But I take a little bit of comfort in the fact that at least until I retire, she'll still be in prison. I can't say for how much longer, but she will still be in prison as long as I'm a cop.
When I moved to Florida, I was in Orlando in Disney World with my kids, and I was talking to these people from Germany. Oh, you're from Miami? Oh my God, what's wrong with Miami? Oh my God, they kill their people every day. I was watching the news in Europe, and I said, yes, man, they do. It's a very dangerous town. Oh, I'm not going there on vacation. My wife was just looking at me like, if he only knew.
But the thing I wanted to know was what happened to all the money?
The invasion came before dawn when U.S. fighter jets bombed General Noriega's military headquarters.
He utilized his position to sell the country of Panama to the traffickers.
When Noriega went down through that bank in Panama, we lost about $140 million between Max, myself, Rafa, Ochoa's, Escobar. Everybody took a big chunk.
That's how come we lost so much.
Because I was in jail at the time, and there was no way to get your money out. And the government seized all the money in that bank. They took all the money.
We went to a movie theater and got in line for about 2 hours to go and see Scarface, the famous movie Scarface. Myself and 9 other guys, all 10 killers. Movie started, you know, all these attempts on him. They claimed they brought 2 kilometers to kill him. But we were just laughing. We would have had him. If it were taking place in real life, we would have got him.
On February 3rd, 2006, Miami attorney Samuel I. Burston pled guilty to obstruction of justice charges after being arrested at his $4.8 million home on Sunset Island. Prosecutors say he acted as house counsel for a criminal organization that imported and distributed cocaine and marijuana. Burston, who is facing 20 years in prison if convicted of all charges, will serve 42 months, forfeit his law license, and give up nearly $400,000 in cash and assets.